Reading from my book, Glory. When God shows up, things go pop and sizzle. I'm going to be reading 2 chapters back to back because the first of these is so short. Chapter 1, Scene 4, Pain. His words were not comforting. Nothing new to a boy who had already known so much trauma. Morning came far too early. Maybe he won't see me. Maybe I can go into the village before he gets up. Samuel's mind flitted from one plan to another as he swung open the wooden gates as quietly as he could. Samuel! Ouch! Too late. Eli had also risen earlier than usual. He was still squeezing into his robe and sash as he coaxed his thick arthritic limbs toward the front door. Samuel, my son, he called. When Hannah had given her young child to the Lord, it had never dawned on her that he would eventually grow up calling somebody else Daddy, and that someone as foreign as an obese, blood-spattered priest would end up calling her boy son. If the Lord ever plays mean jokes on his people, surely this was one of them. Eli had been an inept father with his own sons, but the Creator had given him one more chance. A chance that his fat, overtaxed heart snatched up with alacrity. Samuel! Yes, Papa, here I am. Samuel, the old man said, groping for some physical contact. Eli considered changing the subject, but he knew it would do no lasting good. So he squared his shoulders, pursed his lips, and blurted out, Tell me everything he said. So help me, me and God will whoop your fanny blue if you leave out even one word of all that he said to you. So Samuel told him. He stuttered and stumbled, and his eyes darted from one spot on the ground to another, but he told him everything. He said, I am about to do something in Israel that'll make everybody's ears burn. And one day I'm going to carry out against Eli everything that I have spoken about his house from beginning to end. He said he already told you what he's going to do. Only here did Samuel's eyes flick up toward Eli's stricken face. The old man was nodding. He said he was going to punish your house forever because of the sin that you already know about, because your sons, your big ones, brought a curse on themselves and you didn't stop them. And he also said, I have sworn to his whole family that the sin of Eli will not be atoned for, even if they sacrifice all the animals in the world. Samuel drew in his breath, closed his eyes, and wished the world would end. Would Papa hit him? Would he yell and curse? Would he even believe what he had just said? He opened his eyes and looked at the old man swaying against the gate. You are right. That is what the Lord has said. Let him do. The man turned slowly and began to shuffle back into the dark tent, choking back tears. Let him do as he sees fit. It was many minutes before Samuel moved. Tears coursed down his trembling cheeks. 2 fathers now. He had lost 2 fathers. God took one a long, long time ago, and now he was about to take the other. I don't know if I like this, God. High in the heavens, another weeps more deeply than either of his crying creatures. And now, chapter 1, scene 5. No words fall. No fire from heaven consumed the tent. The earth didn't open up and swallow anybody. Nothing changed at all. At least, nothing that anybody noticed. Eli was very quiet, that was all. And that was terrible enough. Samuel carried on with the business of worship. It was about a week after the terrible visitation that a young family came to the tent to worship. They had a sick infant and were distraught. As their lamb was being killed, they cried out to God, and the man held his sick son skyward with trembling arms. "Oh, Yahweh, heal our son, heal our son, forgive our many sins, and heal our son." Out of concern for the trembling arms, Samuel stepped forward to steady the child. Not knowing what else to say, he echoed their words, "Yahweh, heal their son." Nothing happened that anybody could see, but the woman stopped wailing and merely whimpered. The father lowered the baby and stared at the prepubescent boy in the brightly colored tunic. Samuel turned and walked toward his next chore. The family made their way to the place of feasting. It was half an hour later when Samuel heard a commotion coming from the feasting ground, a row of picnic tables in the shade along one side of the compound. A woman was screaming. A man was shouting. 2 children were jumping and crying. One of the Levite assistants came running around the corner of the tent so fast that he slipped and fell in the loose sand. "Samuel, Samuel, come quick!" he panted, pulling himself up. Samuel put down his tools and began walking toward the chaotic corner, but not quickly enough for the Levite. He grabbed Sammy's sleeve and pulled him at a fast trot toward the noisy family. The woman saw them coming and turned toward them, her face drenched with tears. "Oh God," Sammy thought, "is there no end to the suffering?" But her face was cycling through strange contortions. She laughed, she squealed, she cried, then she laughed again. She pointed to the tiny baby now squirming and cooing in its sister's arms. The baby was pink, Samuel noticed, but he had no time for reflection. "You did this! You did this!" the man was shouting. "God heard your prayer. He started getting better the moment you touched him." Hugs and kisses, the slapping of Samuel's back and more hugs and kisses. The children danced around and around. Samuel nodded and smiled just enough to let himself back out of their frantic clutches. He had done nothing. He was happy to see the child well, but these people were crazy. "I'm not even a priest, just a boy with no fathers," he mumbled. The ecstatic family chortled their way out through the main gate, shaking everyone's hands and waving happily, especially back at Samuel. Samuel didn't know whether to stand on his right foot or his left, but Eli looked at him and winked. It was the first time he had smiled in months. Early the next morning, Samuel was tying back the flap to the tent of meeting. Another dreary day, he was thinking, when his brain was jarred by loud voices at the front gate. "People never show up this early," he grumbled as he walked past the smoldering bronze altar toward the wide wooden gate. His eyes shot open. There stood 3 families. 1 man on crutches, 2 children on mats, a crying infant, and a small bundle wrapped in dark-stained linens. "There he is!" someone shouted. Samuel turned around to see who they were pointing at. There was no one there. "What's going on?" he gasped. The people didn't wait for him to open the gate. One of the fathers reached through and lifted the latch from the outside. They poured in like a flood. Doves, sheep, and goats were hoisted up and tied to the wooden killing benches, but no one waited for Hophni and Phinehas to do their bloody work. The people circled around the wide-eyed boy and shoved their loved ones under his nose, yelling, "Pray for him! Touch him! Touch him! Pray for our sick child!" Samuel had no choice about touching them. He tried to run away, but was blocked by one bundled body after another. Never in his life had Samuel been happy to see Hophni approaching, but he was this time. The big man was tugging on his apron and straightening his turban as he lumbered toward the noise. "What in the hell is going on here?" he growled. The people didn't pause to be offended by the crude language of the man of God. "This boy has the power of God on him," they shouted. Hophni had no more care for the power of God than for the blood that dangled from his apron. But these people had interrupted his peace, and that he cared for very much. He figured the best way to get back to that was to stand Goody Two-Sandals Samuel in the middle of the courtyard and get this crowd of idiots lined up so that he could touch every one of them and say some kind of prayer. So it was that Hophni, son of Eli, organized the first ever healing crusade. The people filed by, some whimpering, some giggling, but all praying, while Samuel, more out of fear of Hophni than fear of God, dutifully laid his hands on each one and muttered some kind of prayer. It would be nice to say that every single person Samuel touched was instantly healed. That was not the case. The small body wrapped in stained linens was declared dead by an equally put-out Phinehas, and the parents were unceremoniously pushed out the front gate even as swarms of flies materialized around them. Samuel didn't have a clue how all this had come about until he saw the family from the day before, excitedly winking and waving at him from outside the gate. "So they're the ones," he gasped. "What on earth am I going to—" A screaming mother off to his left, a girl he had touched only moments before, had opened her eyes and began sitting up. A wave of astonishment swept through the crowd, and the crowd was growing. A steady stream filed in through the open gate. Another family, this one with a father whose right arm stopped short in a bloody mass of bandages, was pushed in front of him. He nearly fainted from the sight and the stench. He wobbled left and right, but a ferocious glance from Hophni kept him riveted to his spot. Yahweh, heal this land. Heal this hand." The bleary-eyed man stumbled on, but his wife pushed up to take his place. "Please bless my child," she said. Samuel looked at the girl standing before him. He was no older than she was, and she a good 3 inches taller. How is a boy to bless a girl? His face turned pomegranate red. "Oh God," he said to himself, "get me out of here." The girl smiled. Samuel touched her shoulder with 2 weak fingers and said, "God blesses you." "I know God blesses her," the woman snapped. "I want you to bless her." Samuel turned from red to white. And I bless you too." Now the girl blushed and moved on. "Give me sick people any day," Samuel muttered. It was noon before Samuel got a chance to eat anything like breakfast. Eli brought him a piece of smoked fish and a slice of yesterday's showbread. His head wobbled as he chewed, his boyish blue turban canting from one side of his head to the other. Several more people had been instantaneously healed. A few others had come back hours later to report the same. The afternoon was less hectic than the morning, although Samuel had no explanation for what was happening. He had no choice but to submit to Hophni's, or was it God's, wishes. He obediently touched and prayed. And when he had the chance, he prayed for himself.